Order, please. Thank you. A warm welcome to all those attending, and for our viewers watching live on the Council YouTube channel, Hillingdon for London. My name is Councillor Henry Higgins. I'm the chairman of this meeting. Details of business to be considered today are shown on the agenda, copies of which are accessible online under the live broadcast. For those present in the room and intending to speak, please note that you will be filmed and any statement you make will be recorded and made public. A reminder to anyone speaking today that your voice will only be heard and audible if you press the red button on the microphone. We're not expecting a fire alarm, so if one does go off, please follow officers outside of this building. Your mobile devices and tablets, can you please make sure they are either switched off or on silent? And I also regard that to the councillors here as well, and I've been guilty of it. That's the only reason I mentioned it. Attendees before this meeting, Councillor Adam Bennett, my Vice Chairman, welcome. Councillor Keith Burrows, Councillor Roy Chandel, Councillor Mand, Councillor Gaelic, and Councillor Singh, welcome. Officers today, Ed Lawton, Area Planning Service Manager, Central and South, Chris Brady, Planning Team Manager, Owen, I was not going to say Owen, okay, I'm going to do it again, okay. Cannon, Planning Team Leader, Richard Mikowski, Highways Advisor and Engineer, Jimmy Walsh, Legal Advice, Natalie Fairclough, Legal Advice, and the star of the show is Nisha Tedge here, Democratic Services. She's the one that makes sure that I do everything correctly, and if I do something wrong, I get a kick under the table, usually. No, I'm only joking, you don't usually do that. Okay, so first of all, we'll go for apologies for absence, please.
No apologies.
Thank you very much. In declaration of interest, matters come before this committee. None? Good. Councillor Mann. Agenda item 8. Thank you very much. Can you declare, is it non-prejudicial? Yes, okay, okay. Okay, that's fantastic. Also, there is no matters that be notified in advance or urgent. Okay. And confirm that all business is in Mark 1 and none is considered in Part 2. I think I've done everything there, so we'll get cracking straight to one, which is number 6, Beacon Close. Chris, do you want to take us away?
Thank you, Chairman. Item 6 relates to the site at 19 Beacon Close. The proposal seeks full planning permission for the demolition of the existing bungalow and the erection of 2 pairs of semi-detached dwellings comprising of 2 times 3 bedroom and 2 times 2 bedroom dwellings with associated hard and soft landscaping and parking. The site is located at the southern end of Beacon Close, which is a cul-de-sac. It comprises a detached single-storey dwelling with a hit roof and detached garage with a flat roof located to the northeast of the dwelling. The street scene on Beacon Close is characterised by detached dwellings set back from the highway. To the west of the site is number 24 Beacon Close, an adjacent detached bungalow that has been extended by a single-storey side and rear extensions and a rear dormer. To the east of the site, as sited on a substantially higher ground, are the backland developments at number 213B and 2... Is that better? Oh, that better? Yeah, sorry. I'll start that part again. So the street scene on Beacon Close is characterised by a detached dwelling set back from the highway. To the west of the site is number 24 Beacon Close, an adjacent detached bungalow that has been extended by single-storey side and rear extensions and a rear dormer. To the east of the site and sited on a substantially higher grounds are the backland developments at 213B and 213C Harefield Road. It should be noted that this site was subject to an application in 2023, which was refused for 4 reasons. This application proposed a terraced block of 4 dwellings, which was considered, due to its terraced nature, to be an overdevelopment of the site and a departure from the existing pattern of development and character of the area. The third reason for refusal related to the over-dominance of hard standing to the front, and the final reason related to the absence of a legal agreement to prevent future occupiers from joining the local parking management scheme. As shown on this constraints plan, the site is located within a parking management scheme area. Here is an existing location plan. You will see the site lies directly adjacent to an existing backland or garden land development site to the west. That is the two smaller properties to the right of the red line. Here are the drawings illustrating the existing bungalow. Here is an image of the existing property. This is two photos of the existing property within its context and a bird's-eye image of the site. I'll now take you through the proposed plans. Here is the site plan. In response to the first two reasons for refusal from the previous application, the proposal now proposes the erection of two sets of semi-detached dwellings separated in the middle. The properties would be set back from the public highway and would no longer feature a staggered set of front elevations. Plots 3 and 4 are set back slightly in line to establish a relationship with the front and rear elevations of number 24. There is also a reduction in the quantum of hard surfacing to the front of the properties, which has been replaced by an increase in soft landscaping. Here are the floor plans and elevations for plot 1 and 2. Here are the floor plans and elevations for plot 3 and 4. You will note that the properties have been designed with hipped roof symmetrical windows and entrance doors beneath a central canopy. This gives the visual impression of a single detached dwelling from within the street scene. Here is a street scene elevation showing the properties within the context of the street scene and neighbouring buildings. I'll take you through some photos of the street scene. So you've got a similar canopy across the front elevation here at ground floor level. You'll note the side extension on the left-hand side of the property. Very similar in character here. Again, there's a porch enclosed within a front extension at ground floor level. Please take note of the scale of this dwelling. Here's another street scene photo. All of these are within reasonably close context to the site. Here's an example of existing garden land development on a site approved at 2F Beacon Close. To the right-hand side of the dwelling, which is to the east part of the photo, there's a small fence. Now, that land, which was previously in the garden of 2F, has been subject to a permission which was approved by this planning committee in November last year. Again, the principle of garden land development in that instance was considered to be acceptable. That development is going to be constructed in this manner. In terms of the principle of development, the application proposes 4 new dwellings within a garden land site. As set out in the opening part of this presentation, there is an example of similar development having been approved directly adjacent to 19 Beacon Close. Furthermore, an application proposing a new dwelling within the garden of an existing dwelling house at 2F Beacon Close was approved by this committee in November last year. This in combination with the existing established residential use of the site brings officers to determine that the principle of development in this instance is acceptable. The objections received raised concerns with the potential overdevelopment of the site and the design's potential impact upon the character and appearance of the area. One particular comment refers to the proposal for semi-detached dwellings being out of character with the detached properties in the local area. It's really important that when we are assessing the impact upon the character and appearance of the area, we look at two elements. One is the design of the dwellings, and 2 is its impact upon the development pattern that's already established within the local area. If we revert back to this plan, on the left-hand side of this site plan, it's clear that there are 2 smaller dwellings having been approved in a backland development site. Stepping forward from that, you then look at the bulk scale and mass of the dwelling. Policy DMH 6 of the local plan, which refers to garden land development, says that development should, in garden land context, should be more intimate in scale. When you take the 2 buildings as within one parcel, read as one, they barely amount to the site area which is covered by the neighbouring properties. So therefore, the scale, bulk and mass, particularly on each of the different plots, is more intimate in scale than what their neighbour. The second part is the character and appearance and the established building lines. So you can see that plots 3 and 4 in particular do not step forward or back from the property to the right hand side, which is number 24. So therefore it's difficult to argue that in this particular case there is a departure from the development, the established pattern of development within the area. Again, you can see here the appearance of the properties have been designed in a way which would reflect one dwelling rather than 2 separate dwellings from within the street scene. So it's difficult to argue the fact that they appear out of scale within its local context. In terms of overlooking concerns, the properties would not feature any windows which have direct views into neighbouring habitable rooms within a 21 metre distance. Any rear-facing windows would provide oblique views of the neighbouring rear gardens, but this degree of overlooking is often mutual and in general for any residential street. The final material point raised within the objections received relates to parking. As shown on the site plan, the properties would be allocated to, the 2-bed properties would be provided with 1 space each, and the 3-bed dwellings would be provided with 2 spaces each. This is compliant with the London Plan parking standards and reflected in the comments from the Council's Highways Engineer on pages 29 to 31 of this committee report. In order to prevent further parking pressures on street, the applicant has agreed to enter into a legal agreement to prevent future occupiers from entering into the local parking management scheme. On other matters, the scheme would provide 4 new dwellings on a brownfield site and therefore contributing to local housing stock and meeting an identified need for family-sized dwellings. The standard of accommodation exceeds the development plan requirements in terms of internal and external space standards. Conditions are proposed to secure further details relating to landscaping, an increase in biodiversity net gain, cycle and bin storage, drainage and external facing materials. In summary, officers consider that the revised proposal addresses the concerns raised which led to the subsequent refusal of the previous application to an acceptable degree. There are benefits established which outweigh the potential harm, and the harm identified in this case is limited. It is for these reasons and for those set out in more detail within the committee report that officers recommend approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, so we have a written statement from Mrs. Roos, I think it is. Okay. You want to read that out? Thank you.
Members of the Hillingdon Planning Committee, my name is Shirley Rue. I live at 18 Beacon Close, Uxbridge, and I am one of the signatories to the petition which has been submitted in opposition to the above planning application. Members of the committee will be aware that this is the 3rd planning application for this proposed development, the first being considered by the Borough Planning Committee and refused with compelling 8 reasons in November 2022. The second being refused for 4 equally significant reasons in February 2024. The current 3rd planning application that under consideration this evening was initially submitted in April 2024, and whilst it should be acknowledged that the applicant has made one material change in reducing the size and scale of the proposed development from the originally sought terrace of 4 3-bedroom houses down to 2 pairs of semi-detached houses, 1 pair of 3-bedroom houses and 1 pair of 2-bedroom houses, the remainder of the application remains the same in substance, albeit that a number of minor cosmetic alterations have also been made. Please consider and take account of the views of the petitioners. The fundamental concern which we have in relation to this application is that a space in Beacon Close, which has hitherto provided accommodation for 1 family, will, under these proposals, provide accommodation for at least 4 families. This has the potential to increase the number of residents on this site from 4 to 18, with all attendant pressures on Beacon Close, traffic volume, parking pressure and drainage that this will bring. This proposal has previously and correctly been described as gross overdevelopment, and whilst it is acknowledged that the absolute physical size of the development has been reduced in the latest application, we contend that the principle of overdevelopment remains, yet appears to have been dismissed by officers, simply on the grounds that there has been a slight reduction in the scale of overdevelopment. The design of the proposed new buildings remains inconsistent with the street scene. Beacon Close is a quiet cul-de-sac comprising large family home, particularly in the immediate vicinity of the development site. The introduction of this development has the potential to add between 8 and 10 additional resident cars which will travel up and down the road, in addition to visitors and delivery vehicles. As indicated in the officer's report, the P-TAL rating of the site is extremely low, and therefore the absence of viable public transport facilities will maximise new residents' reliance upon and use of private vehicles, thus causing increased vehicle traffic volume in the road with related increased safety and nuisance implications. Whilst an undertaking has been made to seek to exclude the proposed new occupants from the existing U8 parking management scheme, the demand for additional on-street parking in Beacon Close as a result of this application is inevitable. This proposed development will therefore cause an unacceptable increase in demand for parking, notwithstanding the indicated compliance with parking provisions as specified by the London Plan. If these proposals or any duration of them were to be accepted, then the demolition and construction phases of the project would cause considerable noise, disruption and traffic congestion to neighbouring properties. Furthermore, 19 Beacon Close is situated at the end of the cul-de-sac, and the road area immediately outside the property is used by large vehicles such as refuse collection lorries as a turning circle. The presence of construction plant and vehicles will fundamentally obstruct this use. In this respect, if the application were to be approved, we request that the permitted hours of working during the demolition and construction process are specified as a condition that can be enforced rather than as an informative, which based our past experience can be all too easily disregarded or even abused. Members of the committee, Beacon Close is a quiet residential street on the very edge of Uxbridge. Its residents have invested in their homes in this street and have a right to expect that their way of life should not be disrupted and disturbed by a scheme which is designed with the sole objective of generating the largest financial return possible. I ask you to therefore consider favourably our repeated request for refusal of this application and at the very least a strengthening of conditions were the application to be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Nisha. How is the applicant here, Mr. Sharland? No? Okay. Are you here?
I'm not the applicant, I'm registered to speak.
Are you the agent? Yes? Yeah, come take a seat then. You do, but we just read out the first one. So go on then. It's all right.
Chairman, can we ask some of the members to speak a bit closer to the
Yes.
microphone?
Thank you. Okay.
We want to start here at the back here.
Okay.
I'm sorry, sir.
Okay, we'll do our best. Okay, then we can turn it up then. Okay. So what happens is you have 5 minutes. The green light will go on. When you get to 4, it go amber and red. I will stop you, and please don't be offended. But that's the only responsibility I have here. So I will do that. So when you're ready, as soon as you press the button.
Thank you. I hope everyone can hear me. This application comes before you with an officer's report that is extensive, thorough and comprehensive. It sets the application against all relevant local and national policies. It examines and it concludes very firmly that it matches all these policies. In terms of the issues raised regarding parking, the parking provided on site is at the maximum level of the London Plan, and our clients have entered into a legal or willing to enter into a legal agreement in respect of restricting further parking pressures on the road. As I say, there are other terraces, semis at the other end of this road and Salt Hill Close. The area is mixed. There is a pair of semi-detached houses of considerably bigger on the adjacent site at a much higher level. Therefore, your officer's report and your officer's presentation to you is comprehensive. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Anybody else asking questions? No? Sorry, I should have asked. Well, the petitioner wasn't here, so I got away with that. I forgot about that. Okay, so it's all been presented. So who's going to take me away? You? Okay, Councillor Bennett.
You. Thank you, Chairman. I remember the second I was on the committee when we rejected this on the second round, and I think it is a great example, I think, of how an applicant can work well with the planning officers to evolve a scheme, and actually, compared to what this was the first time, I remember last time it looked a bit like Coronation Street that was kind of being built at the end. I do empathise with the petitioner's concerns, particularly living nearby, but we have very stretching housing targets from the government that may get even more stretching. We have a real need for homes, and I think this is much more tastefully done now, and precautions have been taken to restrict the overdevelopment, to not worsen the parking. So I would be happy to propose that we move officer's recommendation for approval. There was just a couple of questions. One was on the petitioner's request around construction hour traffic and whether we can firm that up more than an informative. And two was just, how does it work in practice blocking potential homeowners from using a parking management scheme in the future? How sort of reasonable / effective is that? Is it sort of evergreen?
Chris, do you want to take that one?
I think that question is probably better answered by the traffic management team who enforce those, but my understanding is that there is, whenever anybody places an application in with the local authority to enter into the parking management scheme to gain a parking permit, the details of properties that are restricted from that are in a database that is referred to, and therefore the request would be rejected. I think the main reason for why we restrict those parking permits is because effectively we see the parking permit as an additional parking space. In this case, if we were to allow future occupiers from entering into the parking management scheme, it would then breach the threshold within the local plan for maximum car parking standards. So the parking on site is adequate. It's not above those parking standards within the London plan, but taking it from a point of view of adding an extra parking permit into it, it would breach that threshold. Thank you.
Do you want to add something?
If I could just add.
Thank you. Yes, if I could just add, it is standard practice under normal circumstances to impose the resident permit restriction for sites which actually underprovide with parking. So that's a very firm safeguard. Here we've sort of erred on the side of caution. So although it does really tick the box on the sort of parking standard, maximum standard, this will be just another tool that can actually constrain any extraneous parking from the site. So hopefully that would be the resultant.
Okay, thank you very much, Richard. Ed, you want to add? Everybody wants to talk. That's very nice. Good.
Just quickly, to Councillor Bennett's first question, the construction logistics plan, that is secured by condition, not informative.
Brilliant. So I'm proposed. Is anybody going to second me? Councillor Champdale.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the question on the parking again, whenever I've seen in a report on balance, that sort of starts the alarm bells ringing. On balance, I mean, could I just be absolutely clear on what this tandem parking is? I'm old school, so explain to me what exactly tandem parking is.
I won't. I was going to make a joke then, but Chris, do you want to?
Yeah. So tandem parking is. Sorry, can you hear me? It is on. It is on. Yeah. You can hear. Okay.
I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to start shouting. Everybody shout from now on.
Yeah. Is that better? Can you hear me now? Yeah. Thank you. So where you've got plot 2, you'll notice that there are 2 parking spaces, one directly in front of the other. That's a tandem parking space. So in the circumstances where those 2 parking spaces would be split across more than one property, that could cause some friction between the 2 owners in getting them to move their cars. Should the person in front want to get out from the person in front, the person in front. So in the instance where those 2 parking spaces would serve the same property, that friction isn't there. So we do accept on balance that the 2 parking spaces would be acceptable. I would just like to point out as well that the on balance review of the parking on this particular site is we do recognise it is a 1B PTAL. But I would like to make sure members are aware that this is within 10 minutes walk of a PTAL 6 area, which is Uxbridge Town Centre. So therefore we don't really see the reason to add further parking within the site itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Does that answer your
Yeah, because as soon as you see it's 1B town, whether it's 10 minutes away, whether it's 5 minutes away, whether it's half an hour away, it's 1B. You know, you can't bring other bits into it. At the end of the day, you know, if the parking, if you've got a parking management scheme there, they're going to be excluded. You know, that I think will go a long way. So, with that explanation, I'll second officer's recommendation.
Okay, committee, we have proposed and seconded. I'm very pleased to say that we've actually got some 3-bedroom housing, new housing, which is very rare, really, to these days. So, we have proposed second. Now, show of hands those in favour of the application. Councillor Garrick abstaining, so 1 abstention, and the rest are yeses. I won't ask you why. Okay. Okay, the next one is item 7, 39 Park Road, and that is Owen.
Thank you, Chair. Item 7 is 39 Parkfield Road, and that is for the erection of a replacement dwelling with associated parking. The item was presented at committee on the 13th of March this year and was deferred on following grounds, which involved a member's site visit and an independent review of a daylight sunlight report. Just before I start, there has been one representation received following publication in support of the application. That has been in the addendum item. So this is the site location plan. It is situated on the southwestern side of Parkfield Road and comprises part 2-storey, part single-storey dwelling. The site is not within a conservation area and isn't listed. There is a TPO towards the rear of the site, and the site is also within a parking management scheme. So that's a bird's eye view of the site, and here we have the existing plans and also the existing elevations there on the bottom. So the next slide shows the actual the proposed plans. You see the living accommodation on the ground floor on the left hand side, and then you have accommodation bedrooms with en suites on first floor, and there's also a loft space with associated roof lights on it within the roof itself. And there are the proposed plans there. So you have the front elevation on the right top and the rear elevation on the left hand side top, and both flank elevations. We have a block plan there just showing you the context of the new dwelling in the context of both neighbouring properties, number 41 on the right and number 37 on the left. Just to note there's a 45-degree line taken from both windows to the front and also to the rear on number 37. That just shows compliance with daylight sunlight requirements to the front and rear elevation. And this is the street scene, so you just get a context there of the existing street scene on the top hand slide, and then on the bottom is the proposed development. What I would point out is the roof line would mirror, I suppose, the roof line of an existing dwelling there at 43A Parkfield, which is on the right hand side of the slide there. And I suppose here it gives you a context of the site in its immediate area. So that's the application site on the top right, and its context with the neighbouring properties. And that's it to the rear elevation. So again, we have some wider street scene photos. There are a variation of styles along Parkfield Road, from bungalows to story and a half to two-story dwellings, and the street scene has a varied design overall, and that has been, I suppose, in recent appeals noted by the inspectorates. This is just an example of a scheme that was allowed at appeal. I suppose it had a couple of variations since the appeal decision, but generally the appeal itself did not have any objection to the two-story replacement dwelling on the site. So again, it would be a similar roof height to the actual application site. And again, I suppose here's another example of an extension at 43 Parkfield Road. You may recall seeing it in the site slide of the street scene. Again, it does show you the context of the building in terms of its overall size, and a picture there on the left showing it. Again, another property further down the street, 54 and 54A Parkfield Road. Again, these were initially permitted and allowed at appeal in 2016. And again, I suppose the 55 Parkfield Road, a replacement dwelling granted in 2008, and another appeal decision in 2008 was 58 Parkfield Road. So there has been quite a few appeals on the site which have been overturned by the inspectorate. So in terms of the actual the main issues, principally there's no objection to the actual dwelling itself or its replacement. The design has been discussed in the previous committee meeting, and in terms of the prevailing character, officers are satisfied that the design is acceptable along the street scene. There is a varied design. This has been taken up by appeal decisions both recently and in the past, and on balance, officers feel that the design is acceptable. In terms of amenity, since the deferral, members have also visited the site and reviewed the site. We've also got an independent daylight sunlight report which was verified the actual findings of the original daylight sunlight report, which was compliant with the BRE guidelines. So officers again are satisfied that the actual the replacement dwelling would not cause harm to the neighbouring amenities. In terms of parking, they would continue to provide sufficient parking for the dwelling, and there's no objections from highways officers, and the overall standards of accommodation would meet local plan standards. Overall, officers are satisfied that the scheme is acceptable and is recommended for approval, subject to conditions.
Okay. Right. Let's go to the petitioners. Mr. Kirk.
We have a PowerPoint presentation.
Yes, I know. I'm just going to determine.
I have here the numbers.
Okay, if you get to give it to the officers, whoever's got the control. Who's got the control? There you go. Right, Mr. Kirk, obviously you've got 5 minutes. We've got a traffic light system. Green is 4, 1 is amber, red is stop. Please don't offence, but I will stop you on red. So I'll let you go. So as soon as you press the button, we'll set the timer for you.
I moved into Parkfield Road a week before my wedding, and it's my 42nd anniversary to date. My bungalow is location is everything I aspire to. My first and only property, the rooms are small, well lit by 6x4 windows, and the property is designed so that when it's Sunday, each room receives sunlight at some point during the day, and due to the neighbouring hip roofs. The proposal number 39 is 5 self-contained bedrooms with en-suites, and also 6 and possibly 7 and 8 in the loft space using shared bathrooms, plus 2 kitchens and a laundry room. 50 residents I have spoken to agree with the councillor's comments at the last meeting that the proposal was suitable for an HMO boarding house or hotel, that it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, then it's a duck. The application should not be considered as a family house, not least because Hillingdon does not have the resources for enforcement and granting planning application, which will be to the detriment of other residents. 12 adults with cars and only 4 parking spaces means most car movements and associated noise at any time of the day will be on the road and disturb the peace of a no-through road, an amenity currently enjoyed by residents. The planning inspector commented the road is open, light and spacious in recent appeals. The neighbourhood is not uninhabited free real estate ripe for development and exploitation by commercial property developers or newly arrived owners, to the significant detriment of the long-established residents, but the 1930s bungalows with inherent wheelchair access if required that are desirable housing stock, giving diversity suitable for elderly, frail and pensioners with substantial gardens that will never be replaced by LBH should be preserved. The BRE and British Standards EN 17037 state achieving high daylight factors values should be particularly appropriate in housing for the elderly because they require more light and are more likely to be at home during the day. Now referring to the overshadowing of number 41 by 39. The sky visible from the side window of number 41 is reduced by 87% to a mere 4 degrees. This room may be a bedroom, office or any other function chosen by the owner. The planning officer states this is irrelevant as the room achieves minimum daylight standards from the second window facing the road and is currently used as a bedroom with obscured glass for privacy. However, the decrease in amenity due to the decrease in illumination, radiant sunlight and skylight due to the proposed dark, non-reflective wall is unequivocal. The proposed development just meets the minimum daylight standards, but the Hillingdon Plan Part 2 states all developments required will have to be built to higher standards and not decreasing established housing to minimum standards must be implicit. The BRE also highlights passive solar effect where the property is currently warmed directly by sun, number 14, the side wall facing the proposed development, and as fuel costs rise and fuel allowance disappears for many, this becomes more important. As a result of this proposal, it will be overshadowed, causing a cold, gloomy, damp, uninviting side passage as well as a colder room. It is estimated there will be no sunlight in number 41's front room between the 21st of October and the 21st of March due to overshadowing. This is due to the sidewall, two-storey development with only 3 metres between 41 and 39. 1.5 in each property's land, not 4 metres as proposed, as the proposed plans. That was also used for the independent report's calculations. Further, there will be no longer any sunlight at any time of the year in 41's large lobby if this development is granted. Number 39's proposed two-storey full glazed porch gives the appearance of an observation platform and greatly increases the intrusion overlooking across the road, and is further not permitted by Hillingdon Policy A115 Local Plan Part 2. As councillors, you have the authority to insist on more than the minimum, and that all parts of the BRE guidelines should be considered in full. The consultant's report requested as a result of the discussions at the last meeting gives 8 sentences and states the mathematics is correct, and concedes that we explicitly will not consider overshadowing. This was the important point being made at the last meeting, that residents are keen to protect, and the councillors required independent validation, so that the issue remains undisputed. Passive solar power was also not mentioned in the report. My bungalow is 5.2 metres high. The proposed development opposite is 8.4 metres high. That is 3.2 metres higher. My bedrooms and living rooms at the front and front garden are fully exposed to over viewing and the lack of privacy, as well as much of my back garden, as are my neighbours on the even side of the street. The gap between may be 23 metres rather than the required 21, but the Hillingdon Policy Local Plan Part 2 5.38 gives provision for extending the 21 minimum where there is also a significant drop. In this case, 3.3 metres is as described earlier. Number 29 has a precedent...
Sorry, Mr. Kurt, you have to stop now.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Well done for getting through all that. Well done. Committee, I have to inform you all that there is money for enforcement, so that statement that the petitioner made this thing. But if you have any questions for the petitioner, does anybody have a question? Councillor Bennett.
Not a question, but just to say thank you for coming on your wedding anniversary.
Oh dear.
You may take your seat. Thank you, sir.
Oh, is that it?
Yes, that's it.
No questions.
I'm a little way behind, only 10 years. So don't worry. that's 32 years of maths. Okay, so next is... next on it is the applicant, Mr. Scher, is it? Or is it Mr. Austin? Mr. Austin, would you like to come and take a seat? Okay, when you're ready.
I'm the agent, by the way.
Okay, sorry, you're the agent, Mr. Austin.
Okay. Yeah, I'm on. Just to confirm, my name is Kevin D. Austin from KDA Designs Limited, and yes, I produced the scheme in conjunction with my clients who are sitting over there, and this goes back now to about a year and a half ago. I wasn't at the last committee meeting, but I did look at it on YouTube and noted everything that took place. And obviously the committee have been out on site now to assess the site. We've had an independent verification of the daylight and sunlight assessment. There's not much more really I can say. I totally agree with the planning officer's comments. We've tried to keep this new development in keeping with the street scene, the changing street scene. I do sympathise with the existing owners along this road. But, you know, they're moving with times now. Bungalows are not large enough for the larger family. I want to emphasise the fact that it is a family home. My clients are a family who want to use this. They've come over to this country. They're not living in this property yet because they don't want to move into this house until it's finished. This is their dream home. It's only for them. There's no intentions of it being let out to anyone. They've got independent areas where they can bring the family over from their other country they're from. And it's as simple as that. There's no intention of HMO use or anything like that, hotel, whatever's being complained about is not happening. This is a family home, and it's their dream home which they want to spend the money on. They may have spent the money on purchasing the property and they're going to spend hundreds of thousands in developing it, but it's entirely up to them. They shouldn't be penalised for it. So, there's not much more I can actually say apart from I trust everyone's been out on the site now, seen what they had to see, and maybe we can finally put this to bed. So.
Thank you, Mr. Austin. Does anybody have questions for the agent? Thank you. Thank you, Raj. You turn the microphone off for me, that'd be great. We now have a special treat. We have the ward councillor. Can Councillor Goddard come to the table, please? And as you know, because you're an experienced speaker, you only get 3 minutes. So, whenever you're ready.
Chairman, thank you. Members of the committee, Parkfield Road is a road that contains 66 houses or bungalows. The vast majority of the homes on this street are bungalows, okay? And I'm afraid I feel that the emphasis that the officers have put in drawing your attention to the larger houses on this road is somewhat disproportionate. The vast majority of residents living here are older, retired people. These bungalows were built between the two world wars. And so the impact on the vast majority of residents in this street of these developments is considerable. Okay. If we turn to the developments that have been done, and in particular I think number 29 Parkfield Road was referenced, okay, it is absolutely clear that the drawings that supported the episode that went to appeal are not consistent with that property as it is today. And I know that the lead petitioner does take considerable issue with the suggestion that the subsequent changes are immaterial. It really should not be used as a blueprint. Mr. Kirk has done, I'm sure you would agree, an extensive amount of research and work and effort, and I'm not going to attempt to supplement what he says about daylight. But I must actually take issue with what the agent has said about the design of this property and what it's intended for. This has, is it 6, is it 7, is it 8 bedrooms, the vast majority of which are en suite. Okay, it has 2 kitchens, it has a laundry. This sounds like an HMO to me, with all the consequences that brings. This property could accommodate some dozen people with cars, with all the implications that has. Finally, I would suggest that if there is an undertaking that this is not to be an HMO, can we please condition that if this were unfortunately to go through? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Goddard. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you very much. You take a seat. Okay. So obviously we went for a site visit, and we walked up the whole street, if I remember correctly. But who wants to? Adam, sorry, Councillor Bennett. I called you and Adam.
You, Adam.
Okay.
Susan. Okay. So thank you, Chair. So the hardest bit for me reading this was realising that site visit was almost 6 months ago. It feels like it was only yesterday. Time is flying. I do have a lot of sympathy with the residents and also with the petitioner. I think it was one of the best petitions I've ever heard on the committee, and we were right to defer it for a site visit because there were unanswered questions. But when we saw the road, I think I was staggered by the number of very, very similar-sized developments that have taken place, and the proximity of those properties to one another all along the road at various points. And I think what we've been shown tonight on the slides in terms of the approval is a lot of them have been approved at appeal. And there is a significant precedent set here that if we reject and it goes to appeal, that it could well be granted and you lose the conditions that have been negotiated and agreed here. I still think there's a couple of things to tease out on it, though. the HMO piece, Councillor Goddard's point around whether that could be conditioned, what's the process, what's the, are there any in the area, how would the applicant make such a decision and move forward with it?
I'm going to defer to officers because they were going to mention it, but I thought it'd be better to actually thrash it out now. So, Ed, you're going to Owen, you're going to take it?
In terms of a HMO, they would need permission for a large HMO, which is a completely different use class. It's sui generis, so if a property was to be occupied by more than 6 persons, it would require planning permission, and obviously there would be different policies in play on that, and we can review that if a follow-up application was to come in.
Owen, as well, also, if it turns into a hotel, the same principles applies as HMO, doesn't it? So
it would be a change of use.
Change of use, and it's have to come back to the committee.
It would indeed.
Councillor Bennett, do you want to add anything?
Thank you. No, my point was just to clarify then, can we condition it that if an HMO or a hotel application or similar, it has to come back to the planning committee for approval?
I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't think it's in a Article 4 area, but can officers...
It wouldn't be necessary to condition it as it would require planning permission for the change of use. If it was found out that a large HMO was in operation via enforcement, the enforcement powers are available if no application is coming forward, and therefore it comes back to committee if a planning application were to be submitted.
I believe I have the right to say that it should come back to committee. Is that correct? Yeah, so I'll say that now then. If it only changes into either hotel or HMO, it has to come back to committee. Okay, so that I didn't realise I had that power. I should use it more often. Councillor Bennett, do you want to add anything? Councillor Chandel.
Thank you, Chair. I think the petitioner delivered something in 5 minutes I haven't heard delivered in an hour. So well done there. But listen, that is a big grey area. Is about the potential HMO. It's not an Article 4 area, so it's welcome that the chairman has put his comment that it has to come back before committee. Street scene. I mean, we've had conversations about street scene. Now, street scene. I've been on committees for about 8 years now on planning. It's getting more and more difficult because the street scene is changing from a standard road where all the houses are similar. Now they are completely different. I mean, this is a wide street. It was a lovely summer's day when we came out to see it. And as the Vice Chair said, there are a hell of a lot of developments there which are similar, and if not, I believe one was even higher than the one that's been mentioned now. But the question I have is for officers is about the daylight again. So if I didn't quite hear it clearly, has the standard been met in full in terms of...
The standards have been met in full. They've done daylight assessment and they've done sunlight assessment. It also passes the 45-degree test on both the front and rear windows. In terms of the actual paragraphs that have been quoted in the slides, they're within the BRE guidelines, but they relate to new developments. They don't relate to existing buildings. So the actual daylight sunlight report was in line with existing buildings guidance. So we're satisfied that the report was carried out accordingly, and it has been verified and independently scrutinised, and the findings have been they're satisfied with the findings.
Thank you, Owen. Councillor Chandel.
Thank you for that. Just going in line with the comment also that the Vice Chair made, was a lot of these decisions which were refused by committee or by officers have been going to further up the ladder, and they make the decision, and that's binding. And then you do lose all the conditions and everything else you put on. So with that in mind, I would go forward with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Chandler. Councillor Gaelic, you wish to speak?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted some clarification about the number of bedrooms, because there's one on the ground level, potentially 2 in the attic, And how many on the first floor?
So there's a guest suite on the ground level, and then there's 4 bedrooms on the first, and on the loft there is 1 bedroom as well.
And secondary question.
Please.
Is the site in PTAL 1 or 3?
Just bear with me.
Chair, if I may, it's
Yeah.
3. Councillor.
3. Okay, because on page 74 it says 1A, so it wasn't clear.
There's a typo on the report. Well spotted. Well spotted. Is that everything, Councillor Gillett? Yeah, thank you. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I mentioned before, I do feel sorry for the residents too. If you've lived somewhere a long time and you see the character of the area changing over time, ultimately the planning inspectorate has changed this road progressively with various appeals that have come along, such that now, you know, when you look at the street scene, what starked about this house is actually it stands out as being odd on the street scene almost, because it looks like it's kind of built sideways. It's got this Spanish hacienda kind of feel to it. And ultimately, if it fulfills officers' recommendations, we've done the right thing of deferring it to visit, to get clarity on the lighting. I think, as the agent said, the owner and the applicant are entitled to do what they want with it in terms of demolishing it and rebuilding it if that's their choice and they're willing to incur the cost. So I think, given the extra condition that we've added this evening, or clarification, I'm happy to second officer's recommendation for approval.
Thank you. So I've been proposing secretary. I just want to pick up something myself. The petitioner said something about 2 kitchens. I can't see 2 kitchens on the plan. And can you also emphasise what the planning rules are about kitchens? Because I think it can sometimes be a bit of a red herring.
Well, if you look, it's more a contemporary layout. You have, it says kitchen too, but it's like a small area for cooking, and then you have a kitchen dining area for eating. So it's a contemporary style kitchen in my view, and it would be fit for purpose for modern living.
Thank you very much. Okay, on that, we're proposing seconded. As I've used my prerogative as chairman to bring it back if it comes to a hotel or to a HMO, are we all agreed with that? Oh, Councillor, hands up, those are in favour. That's it. That's in. Abstaining again? Against. Oh, against. Okay, great. Thank you. So we have 1 against and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4. So that's been approved. Thank you for that. Okay. Item. You see, everybody feels that they can shout at me now. I don't like it. I feel like a king that should not be shouted at. Okay, so can we get cracking on to the next one? It's another petition item, is item 8, 152 to 154 Uxbridge Road. Councillor Mann has left the building because he's or room. But I always wanted to say that out loud. So that's done, and now it's over to you, Chris. Back again.
Before I
Seamless
start,
change.
just make sure you can hear me properly.
Okay.
Yep, good. Thank you, Chairman. Item 8 relates to the site at 152 to 154 Uxbridge Road. The proposal seeks full planning permission for the demolition of the existing building and construction of a new 3-storey building comprising of 9 residential apartments and the replacement of the existing ground floor retail unit with associated parking, amendments to drop curbs, refuse and bicycle storage. Here we have the location plan with the site denoted in red. Here is an existing floor plan. That's the ground floor plan. Here we have the existing first floor plan. An existing set of elevations. You'll see the ground floor retail units on the bottom right hand corner. Not sure. I've never seen that before. Here's a ground floor plan, which is the proposal would not result in a loss of the retail space at ground floor level. There are 1 times 2 bed units located at the ground floor and an undercroft car park comprising of 9 vehicle spaces. Here is the first floor plan. This would comprise of 2 times 2 bed and 2 times 4 bed units. And here is a second floor plan. This would comprise of 2 times 2 bed and 2 times 3 bed units. Here we have the proposed roof plan. You'll note that there is a level of amenity space provided on the roof area. This would serve all of the proposed occupants of the development. Here is the landscape proposal plan, and then the roof garden plan in more detail. Here are the front and side elevations. You'll note that the scale of development on this side, which is fronting the Uxbridge Road at the top, does not exceed the pattern of development, scale and form of the adjacent buildings. You'll note that on the Brookside Road elevation, which turns the corner, the development and character of the building continues. Here we have the side and rear elevations. The side elevation, the rear elevation, which is at the top of the screen, has some linear high-level windows. Here we have some sections. The section plan in the right-hand corner does show an indicative overlooking view from within the rooftop garden space. Here we have a bird's eye view plan. Here is the existing front elevation, which is on the Uxbridge Road. The part of the building to be demolished is the gable-ended corner building with the green signage. The rest of the building would remain as is. Here is the part of the retail unit which fronts Brookside Road. Again, this is the side elevation, so the site actually extends outwards to where that car parking space is. The rear is the service yard, which is there's some uses within that particular area which are generally unsightly. So there's some parked vehicles, some gas bottle storage. You'll see the shipping container there in the image as well. Please note that there are some upper floor level habitable rooms within the rest of the building, which you'll see on the left hand side of this photo. Here is just an image of the site and the existing service yard, which backs onto the retail unit, and there's just some distant views from within that area. That is number 2 Brookside Road. There is a window within the side elevation. I'm aware that those side-facing windows do not serve habitable rooms, and therefore do not cause any issues to do with overlooking or daylight and sunlight concerns. Here are the upper floor units that I was referring to a moment ago. They would remain, albeit the upper floor unit within the gable-ended right-hand side building would be replaced, as that does form part of the unit that's to be demolished. And here is some views of those windows within that side elevation of 2 Brookside Road from within the development site. The application site is directly opposite 156 Uxbridge Road. There are some habitable room windows within that elevation. I'll refer to those in a moment when we discuss amenity. And here is just an image of the rest of the properties that form that parade. Turning to the assessment of the proposal, the application offers the opportunity to bring forward a residential-led mixed-use development on a site which provides little contribution to the quality of the character and appearance of the area, and also an opportunity to address issues with the use of the land to the rear of the site. I mean, you can see from the images which we've shown you there that there is very little architectural merit in that end unit anymore. Furthermore, it would result in an optimisation and provision of new residential units on a brownfield site. The proposal would not result in a loss of retail space. All of these factors weigh in favour of the proposed development, and accordingly the principal development is considered to be acceptable. In terms of the design, the development would consist of a 3-storey building fronting Brookside Road, connected to the 2-storey element and a more traditional design of the replacement building fronting the Uxbridge Road. As shown in the photos, the existing building is in a poor state and provides no contribution to the quality of the character and appearance of the area. As such, its replacement is considered to be acceptable in design terms, and it should be noted that the design officer has reviewed the proposal and raised no objection. During the assessment of the application, the prominence of the lift overruns was discussed with the agent. These are required to provide occupants who may have mobility difficulties with access to the rooftop amenity area. As such, the scale is broadly acceptable, and further materials details to improve their design and the quality of the overruns through the materials will be attached to the decision notice. Turning to neighbour amenity, there are first and second floor windows within the elevation fronting Brookside Road. Number 156 Uxbridge Road features windows directly facing the elevation but approximately 19.5 metres away. The general guidance applied to separation distances which should be achieved between existing and proposed habitable room windows is 21 metres. The shortfall from the guidance is a modest 1.5 metres, and it should be noted that it is common to apply flexibility to achieving this distance when existing and development is separated from the proposed development by a street. This is because most streets feature properties on both sides which generally fall short of the 21 metre guidance. With regards to the potential impact of the development upon the properties with windows within the rear elevation of the adjacent buildings within the parade, which this building will form part of, there would be no direct views offered between existing and proposed habitable rooms within a 21 metre distance. A setting has been applied at roof level with planting around the outer edge to reduce the potential overlooking from the roof garden into the windows within the rear elevation of the existing parade. As such, any potential views would be oblique. Finally, with regards to number 2 Brookside Road, which is to the north, there are 3 side-facing windows which appear to serve non-habitable room spaces, and in any event there would be no habitable room windows which offer direct views into any of these side-facing windows. In the rounds, taking all of these points into consideration, officers are satisfied that the development would not result in privacy issues surrounding residential properties. In terms of daylight and sunlight, the application is submitted by a daylight and sunlight report, which demonstrates that the development would not result in harmful loss of daylight or sunlight within this urban area. Turning to the level of living accommodation, the proposal would provide adequate internal and external standards of accommodation to comply with the development plan. The concerns raised by residents in response to the public consultation include increase in traffic. The development would be served by 9 car parking spaces amounting to 1 per unit, which complies with the standards set out within the development plan. It is noted that the application has been reviewed by the local highway authority, who raised no objection to the level of parking proposed. The servicing for the retail unit is proposed to be undertaken on street, which would require an amendment to the traffic order. Subject to the applicant's agreement to fund the traffic order amendment, this arrangement is considered to be acceptable. This would be secured in the form of a legal agreement. In terms of other matters, the site is located on the edge of an air quality focus and management area, and as such it should demonstrate that it is air quality positive, not just neutral. A financial contribution to offset the limited opportunity for on-site mitigation is proposed, and this would also be secured by a way of a legal agreement. In summary, the development accords with the development plan by utilising brownfield site to bring forward new housing and family-sized housing for which there is an identified need for within the borough. The standard of accommodation complies with the development plan and it would offer an opportunity to improve the design quality within this area. Whilst there is a minor shortfall in the separation distance between the proposed units and the existing property at 156 Uxbridge Road, there are significant benefits which would outweigh the harm, and the harm here is identified as very limited. As such, it is for these reasons and for those set out within the committee report in more detail that officers recommend the application be approved.
Thank you very much, Chris. That's really good. Is the applicant or agent here? Do they wish to speak? Nothing to add. Okay, that's brilliant. Okay, that makes it nicer for us, doesn't it? But Ed, do you want to add something?
Yeah, sorry, one quick point. There is an addendum item on this, and that's simply a correction in the report. Thanks.
Okay. So I'll offer it straight to the floor. Councillor Chandal.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I know this area, actually. Yeah, if you come to the first picture, that one? Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, I know it. Yeah, you're quite right. It is. I'm not quite sure the term on page 115 of an unattractive shop. I'm not sure the occupants would be quite happy with that. But it's a development. I think once it's developed, it will make the other shops look not so great. I've seen all the multicoloured shutters that seem to be there. So I'm not quite sure how that term comes into it. It's a development, it's housing, valuable housing that we need. The parking, I'm sure there's parking restrictions down that road. It's difficult to get any parking down there. So I go the other side. But otherwise, I can't really see an issue with it. It was just the parking. The parking, I understand you said there was going to be some agreement or some parking thing. So with that, I would go with officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Chandal. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to second officer's recommendation for approval.
Oh, that was quick. Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Chair. May I ask the officers how many retail units on the ground floor?
There's one unit on the ground floor, which is to the rear, and there is one unit. There is one retail unit that's separated by an undercroft car park.
Thank you, officers. I understand there are 9 car parking spaces over there, 2 retail units, 9 flats or houses. The main reason is a traffic over there, because Guru Nanak School opposite that Brookside Road. So the school time, the queue is nearly half kilometer every day. So that's my main concern. The people in the evening, they couldn't find the parking spaces because 2 off licenses, restaurant, 2 takeaways. So that's I'm a bit worried about that.
Chris?
Yeah, so I think when we're assessing the highway impact, we have to be quite careful in assessing the other retail units or the other uses. What we are looking at here is we've got a vacant plot towards the rear, which is very underutilised. It's not used to serve the retail unit. We are providing 9 car parking spaces within a relatively sustainable area. There's a bus stop right outside of the development. If we're looking at local infrastructure, there's a plethora of it. So I wouldn't consider this to be an area where people would have to walk to those elements of infrastructure. So local shops, schools, for instance. I mean, the Southall Broadway is probably 5 minutes walking distance. Again, there's significant infrastructure there. So in fact, I think we could probably do with less parking here rather than more. We've got 9 spaces dedicated to the development. That would amount to at least 1 per unit. How that's going to be allocated is a matter for a condition to be discharged. But there is significant parking restrictions in the area to prevent any parking overspill. So I think officers are very confident that the level of parking is acceptable and wouldn't result in congestion. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Singh. Councillor Gaelic.
Because I think you mentioned that the air quality is positive now, or is it neutral?
Yeah, good question. Thank you. So the site is actually located within an air quality management area and a focus area, which requires the development to which requires the development to be air quality positive. The air quality officers reviewed the submitted report, and a damage cost contribution would result in an air quality positive development, and not just air quality neutral. As such, that would be secured by way of a legal agreement. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor, you okay? Okay. I'll also say I'm glad, Councillor Singh, you mentioned about the school and the traffic. We've been trying to lobby TfL. Maybe someone can lobby TfL to sort out that light system there, because it's an absolute nightmare outside the school. So anyway, that's another issue. Councillor Chamdown, then Councillor Bennett.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Sorry, one point I forgot to mention was there was an extract flue. I saw a shop nearby, because this is going to be 3 stories high now. That's 2. In terms of what the point I'm trying to get at is, if somebody buys a flat and then complains about the smells coming from the flue, the flue was there before the flat. So what controls have you got for that?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Very good observation. You've got keen eyes.
He's got his glasses on.
What I would say is that just by looking at that photo, that extraction fan is aimed above the building. So although it looks like a modest distance from here, if you got quite close to it, you'd probably say that that's in the region of between 1 metre and 1.5 metres above the building. It's not aimed in the direction anywhere near any of these properties, and in fact, you would probably say that if anyone was going to complain about that extraction fan, it'd probably be the units that it's directly above. It's also not in the scope of this application, so we can't expect it to be redressed. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Chandler. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chair. I'm aware I have already seconded it, and then
I'm being very flexible.
It was when Chris mentioned brownfield site, and I thought actually we should call out that this is a good development on a brownfield site, and our new Deputy Prime Minister will probably have her eyes on it, I'm sure, at some point. So it's good to see that there is a site where we're putting in houses and retail, and it's brownfield.
Okay, so I'm proposed and seconded. All those in favour of this application, please indicate. Abstain. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1 abstention. Thank you very much. That's passed. It's a pleasure. If you're on the way out, would you mind getting one of our councillors back in for us? That'd be great. Thank you. It was a positive result, so it would help. Which is a bit ironic. Never mind. Welcome back, Councillor Mann. Okay, so now we're on the agenda without petitions. So most of these are straightforward. Number 9, Yedding Infant School.
Item 9, Yedding Infant School. Installation of solar panels on the school roofs. It's brought forward to committee due to it being a council application. No objections received. In general, there's the site location plan. The building is locally listed. We have received conservation comments back with no objections, given the locations of the solar panels are positioned to the rear of the street. So that's location plan. Existing northern elevation, existing southern elevation plan, existing eastern elevation, and the western plan. And there's your existing roof plan. And so I believe that's the front of the school, proposed northern elevation, so that will remain non-solar panels. And then they're located on the southern elevation to pick up on the sunshine, and on the eastern elevation. And that's the western elevation. So section then, generally policy compliant in terms of supporting energy and carbon free developments. No objections from conservation, and no impacts on neighbours, amenity. Officers recommend approval.
Thank you, Owen. Oh, Councillor Burrows. Councillor Chandal.
You got me correct as well, straight away.
Right.
Thank you, Chair.
I've known you longer.
I just want to say this is a good report. It's a good way forward, us going greener. And I'm sure the children, when they see these being put onto the roofs, can have a lot of questions for teachers, etc., and may even generate lessons for the school on how this energy generates, how it gets used, etc. So I fully support this application and propose we move forward with the approval.
Thank you very much. Councillor Chandal.
Thank you, Chair. I hear the sentiments from Councillor Burrows there. In addition, I mean, although it's not a planning consideration, it'd be good to see, you know, the cost of these panels and what we save, and maybe, and hopefully it'll save a lot of money and obviously contribute to our net zero targets. And then maybe other buildings, other schools can then actually take it forward as well.
Yeah, no,
I know it's not a planning consideration, but I think it's worth mentioning.
That's good.
And I'll second the officer's recommendation.
Okay. So I'm proposed and seconded. Anybody will have a show of hands, all in favour? Or not? Unanimous. Thank you very much. The first one of the evening. Okay, number 10, Pinkwell Primary.
Yeah, me again.
As I said before, I was very disturbed the way this was written, but once officers explained it to me, I was fine with it. So
yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is an application for Pinkwell Primary. The application comprises of the replacement of an existing timber fence with 3 metre high V-mesh security fencing. Here is a location plan which shows the entire school site within the red line boundary. Members will note that there is greenbelt land surrounding the site to the south and to the west. Here is another location plan. Now, this location plan actually shows the part of the site which is subject to the new fencing. The fencing is being installed in order to assist with security for the SEM provision which is being undertaken and which currently occupies an under-occupied area of the school. Again, here you'll see just a closer image of that existing site plan with the area denoted in red. Here is an existing and proposed fence line plan. You'll notice that the fence which is due to be replaced is in red and green. Here is an image of the proposed fencing. Now, this fencing is actually already in place in other parts of the school, so in terms of its impact upon the character within the site itself, there would be no impact. Here is a bird's eye view plan which covers the entire site. The fencing which is to be replaced will bound the school playground and the car park. New gates will be added to the centre part, which it will show where the access is at the moment, just to the right hand side of that hedge. The fence that's to be replaced is the timber fence on the right hand side of the plan. You'll see that that is quite an ordinary sort of residential type fencing. Here we have the school playground. Fencing to be replaced is on the left hand side. In terms of the assessment of the application, although the development does bound the green belt, the fencing isn't considered to cause any detrimental harms in terms of openness. It would, as I said earlier, help to increase pupil safety within the school. And for those reasons, the application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Chandal.
Thank you, Chair. The principle of the thing is fine. It's just the fence itself. Now, the fence that we see already, it's completely, you can't see through it. And this one, can you actually visually see through that? The reason why I say that, in my own ward, we have a similar case where you can actually see through it and you can see the kids in there. And the residents that live on that road think that's not quite right. And now the school has actually put some sort of screening internally. So safety-wise, yeah, a big tick. But in terms of compared to the fence that we've got currently and now, there is a clear difference.
Okay, officers, Chris.
Yeah, and that's a very good observation. So thank you. what I would say is that this metal fencing is mesh that does provide, because of the separation distance between the panels that create the mesh fencing, it is obscure. You can actually see through it, but the fence is entirely enclosed within the site, so there are no public views apart from the greenbelt land to the north. That land is private, so the public have no access to it. It's not a park or open space. And the closest, the distance between where the fence would be located within the car park and the road is approximately 25 metres away. So it's a considerable distance.
Okay,
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. So with that, Chairman, I'd like to go to the officer's recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is straightforward and is really good for the kids' safety. So I'm second.
Okay, that's fine. I'm proposing second. Oh, sorry, Councillor Bennett, would you like to say something?
No, just another stupid comment, Chair, which was just to say, please, we've clarified it's 3 metre high fencing, not 3 metre high security fencing, which was how I originally read it when I was going through.
That's a very good observation. So I'm proposing second. Can I have all show of hands, all those in favour? That's unanimous. Right, so the next one is item 11, which is LB8 Central Depot.
Thank you, Chair.
Oh, it's you, Ed. Well, that's a bit of a surprise.
I thought I'd present one. Present one for all time's sake. With your permission, I'll run through this relatively quickly. Central Depot, so essentially, if Chris can flick through the slides, this is an acoustic wall proposed around the service yard to protect residential amenity for the adjacent properties. So it's a 4 metre high wall, 40 metres long. If you skip forward, back, there it is. Yep, so if you highlight that wall.
Just turn it on. Never mind, we know what it is,
yep.
Don't worry.
Yep. So the wall would be 22 metres away from the nearest residential property. At the moment, those properties have view of the service yard, which is fairly messy, fairly noisy. The wall is proposed to improve their residential amenity. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think that's absolutely brilliant. That's what we need. Councillor Chandel.
Go with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you.
About time, I would have said as well. This is my ward, and we do have loads of. I've had a few MEs sent down about that. Listen, common sense prevails. We've got a yard. It's at distance from residents. We can definitely smell parts of it in the summer, but I think this will help, and I think the residents will be happier.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Burrows.
Thanks, Chair. I will second the officer's recommendation. It's about time they put a wall around there. The yard is a large yard. It does get very noisy, different times of day, early morning, evenings. So I think residents will appreciate this, and certainly Councillor Chamdale's MEs may go down slightly. So I support this.
Okay, so that's proposed and seconded. Can I show of hands, all in favour? That's all in favour. That's unanimously approved, and I'd like to say thank you everybody for watching and being here, and thank you all for coming today. So we are